Welcome to MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers. Each week, I talk with industry leaders on both marketing and entrepreneurship and business to find out all about their wins and failures in marketing right now. We'll hear all about successes and wins and what's fallen flat so that you can take that knowledge and implement it. Learn from the best, from the folks who've been there and done it all, as well as people just like you. Thanks for joining us. This is MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers. This week, I'm joined by Jeremy Jacobs. Jeremy, lovely to have you on the show, mate.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to be on here, even though it's taken us a while to get to this point on many levels.
Yeah, any other podcast hosts who are listening along to the show, you will be nodding in a moment when I tell you that like the technical problems with today's setup were real. We had some real challenges. So yeah, thank you very much for your perseverance, Jeremy.
Oh no, not a problem. Not a problem.
So a little short background for Jeremy for those who don't know you. Jeremy's an experienced entrepreneur and marketing consultant. So he's probably best known for founding Cookie Jar, which is a next generation business consultancy, and Corn Cobs, which is a paid media advertising. I love the food. Like I'm a big foodie. I love it. I can tell we're going to get along. So Jeremy's got over 20 years in digital marketing. He's managed global campaigns for brands like ASOS and BMW. And he's also previously co-founded Ray's Bakery with So Aligned. Food is everywhere. Ray's Bakery, growing it to a seven-figure business. And now he uses that expertise to coach entrepreneurs, especially those with ADHD, empower them to build sustainable and impactful businesses. I feel like I know you before we even start talking, Jeremy.
That's good.
I love it. So first up, you originally started running a bakery, right? Am I right to say that? How do you get from running a bakery to marketing agencies?
Actually, there's a part which you may not know because I've recently changed my LinkedIn profile and I've kind of focused on what I'm doing now. But I actually had a career prior to starting a bakery with no food experience or very little in digital marketing. So I'll give you the short version of a long story. I left uni. I went to uni slightly later than most people. I went 21 and I wanted to be a web designer, which I say is like the current generation's version of content creator / influencer, and got a job at a small agency in Brighton. And, as anyone who knows, when you run a small business, you're expected to do everything. And I was asked to start taking on paid search clients. And that was kind of my bag, really, when I was working there. And then eventually got headhunted to go up to London to work with a couple of big agencies up there. And, I was like 26 at the time. And I was like an account director. And and it was a baptism by fire. But that was where I really started my journey into working with these big agencies and big clients purely in paid search. That was what I did. So yeah, it's been 20 years, which makes me feel and sound very old.
I don't think we're too far apart in age, Jeremy. So I've had some of those moments myself in the last week. My son turned 7 over the weekend, and me and my wife realised that he could well have been 20 and fly in the coop had we earlier together. But we're just going through the pain of having a 7-year-old instead. That's fun. Hi, and thanks for joining us for the show. I'm Paul, founder here at Javelin Content Management. We specialise in getting ideas out of your head, down into video, and out to your social media through repurposing and efficient content strategies. If you want to find out how you can convert your ideal audience into paying customers, reach out to us, javelincontent.com, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. So first up, before I get stuck into anything else, what's with the constant food references? Why is food so important in your business?
So yeah, that's a good question. You'll know by Corn Cobs, Cookie Jar. I mean, Ray's Bakery was hopefully reasonably obvious. It was called something before then, but we had to rebrand it to Ray's Bakery, and it was the raising of cakes and we didn't make bread, but raising of cakes. But also it had a lot of other connotations. I really like to choose names that have more meaning behind them and mean something to me. Mm-hmm. So we picked Ray's Bakery. We learned that you have to go and check you got the domain name and it's not trademark registered, which we didn't do, hence why I had to change the name. And then Cookie Jar just came off the back of like my obsession with cookies. And I started the Cookie Jar actually just before the pandemic started. My intention was always to help other business owners learn from the mistakes that I'd made so they can shortcut them, the people who are willing to listen. And that wasn't me when I was building my business, willing to listen and want that help to help them to grow a business because I love helping people. And I picked Cookie Jar because it was a story about the fact that my nana always used to have a cookie jar on her kitchen counter and I was never allowed in it. It was always controlled. And it was this idea of like, take what you want from life and take from the cookie jar. So I've got this whole story about that. And then Corn Cobs. I'm still slightly sort of cringe when I say it because it sounds a bit cheesy, but actually if you cover up the first two letters of my surname, Jacobs, you've got Cobs. And I just picked Corn Cobs. That's kind of how my ADHD brain works. It just sounded fun. I went with it. And it gets people talking.
I love it. And that's exactly it, right? For me, there are so many businesses out there that struggle when they first get into a business conversation. And for me, like I don't have that struggle, right? Like I love having conversations with people and I can naturally get into that relationship building. But for a lot of those people that do struggle, I think that's a brilliant tactic to think about is, can you name your business something that will generate that conversation naturally? Because you will have that conversation every time you meet a new person over and over again. And I love the idea behind it, Jeremy. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I guess Cookie Jar then, I really align with that because that's kind of why we started this show in the first place, right? This whole podcast is built around the idea of, I'm not a marketing expert. And if I'm not, I know there's lots of other people out there who aren't. And I wanted to pick people's brains and understand what they do and when I need different services and share that with our audience, either from a business owner's perspective or a marketeer's perspective. And you're both. You're very much both. So Cookie Jar really aligns with where we're going as a podcast. So how do you guys kind of stand out in the marketplace? What's unique about Cookie Jar?
I think for me, the clients I work with, that's an important place to start because I'm working with small business owners. And the thing that makes me stand out from people is one, there's always a lot of pressure I feel on business owners to stand out and try and come up with this really unique way of standing out and being very different. And that is so important in a crowded market. And you being you and doing the things you do the way you do is a USP. You cannot be replicated. And with all of my clients, I'm working very closely with them on a day-to-day basis, and they have to like me and they have to get on with me. And so that isn't particularly a very good answer from a marketing perspective. And it's how I feel about it. Really. And the other thing is that I have been in their shoes and I understand where they're coming from and their pain points and their challenges. And, sort of marketing 101 is define your ideal customer persona and figure out what their challenges are and what their pain points are and continually speak into that. And given the fact that I've done that for 18 years, I don't need to do that research. I know exactly how they're feeling. And what's really important for me is when I'm doing my coaching, whether I'm doing my marketing, whatever I'm doing, it's about creating an environment where that person can show up and feel heard and understood and not judged. And there's a lot of this in small business owners where they feel like they should be doing this the right way, should be right? And the fact is, we're all learning. I didn't start a business with all this business knowledge. No one does. You can go and do an MBA like I did. That won't teach you how to run a business. The only way to learn how to run a business is to go and run a business. So we're all trying very hard. And I know that for my clients, it's really important that they can show up and just be themselves and be really honest, because we need to get to the bottom of what isn't working as much as we do what is working. And the only way to do that is for people to have to go, I don't know what I'm doing, or I've tried this and it really failed and messed up. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, we know what we're working with. and then we can go from there. So I think those are probably I can probably think of some really slick marketing responses, but they're not. That's my truth.
It's just honest, right?
Who I am.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's nice
Yeah.
that you've got also
Yeah.
a focus on the coaching element of it with like looking after that personal well-being as well, because I see a lot of entrepreneurs out there who I always say, right, if things are great at home and things are tough at work, you can survive. And if things are tough at work, but they're all, I said that before, things are okay at home, but they're tough at work, then you can survive. And when both are really tough, where do you go to when you're an entrepreneur? So like, that's really important for me. Is like, I've built a really good support network, and that's important for me as a person to make sure I'm checking in on my colleagues and network. But it's interesting to see somebody balancing supporting early stage businesses with that personal well-being as part of a coaching strategy as well. I imagine that's quite rewarding.
It is. It's rewarding for my clients, and it's rewarding for me. The emphasis on this comes from really challenging times. So one thing that we haven't mentioned, which you may know from my profile, is I closed Ray's Bakery 3 years ago, and I did that. I could have kept on going, but I made that choice to close, and it was a really hard and really easy decision to make. And the reason that I took that decision to close is that I was in a new relationship I'm now married to that person.
Yes.
And I remember standing, and actually it's getting me a little bit like emotional thinking about it. I remember standing in the street outside my house, and I had to go into work, and I was on the edge of having a breakdown. I had had enough. I was exhausted. Yeah, I was done really. And I remember saying, I just was like, I don't want to go into work. But I got in the car and I went to work, and it wasn't until about another 2 months later that I actually went, do you know what? I'm done. I'm done here. I've had enough. I've given it my all, and I just don't want to do it anymore. And going through that process made me realize that life is too short. I lost a friend a couple of years ago to cancer. I saw him he lived in America. I saw him 6 months, he was gone. And he had an amazing life. And it just makes you realize that life is just too short for this. There's too much crap going on in the world right now. And it is absolutely possible for people to be able to have a thriving, growing, successful business and have a great personal life. You can't run a business successfully constantly in this like survival stress state. It's just no good for anyone. But it's so easy to get caught up in that because you've got your business, it's your baby, you've got all these, these pressures, and you've got these dickhead, excuse my language, influencers on social media pushing this message that you've got to grind and hustle and make it work. There is a very small part of our entrepreneur community who work like that. And, your life, you go and do what you want, but you've really got to question and be able to take a step back and go, is this what I want for myself? Because it's alluring and it's really, really tempting to be pulled into it. And I don't think most people really, really want that. And probably most people won't achieve that. So it's checking your ego and just taking a step back and, thinking, is this how I want my life to live? And it's 100% about going and getting help, whether that's a business coach or a mentor, a fellow entrepreneur, a networking group, people on LinkedIn. Like, talking to people about what you're dealing with is so important. And for me, that is the core of what I do. And I'm always checking my clients. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are we pushing too hard? And always checking it. And it becomes almost ridiculous that we think that like there's this person with like a personal life here and a business owner here, and the two are separate. They're not. They're all one. So yeah, probably, hopefully that's answered your question.
I love the passion in the answer, though. I love the passion in the answer, and it's clear how much you get out of what I heard somebody describe it the other day as pouring themselves into their clients as a coach. And I love that idea that it's pouring your soul into those people. And I really do kind of resonate with that. And it brings me nicely to, we'll get one more topic to come on to before we come back more to the marketing side of things. But ADHD and entrepreneurship is such an important topic for me because I self-diagnosed a couple of years back. I still haven't decided whether I'm going to go the formal route or not. My son's in the process. He's 7. He's going through the process of being assessed towards it. And hands on heart, I'm quite open and transparent about it. Like, I've accepted it. I've lived with it all my life, right? Like, I didn't know about it, but now I can articulate it. Now I'm comfortable with it. And pretty much every business owner I speak to, I see elements of ADHD or autism or the common, not just neurodiversity in the people that I speak to. And I just call it out. Like, nobody's yet taken offense. Like, I don't think anyway. But I think it's super important that we just have that open communication about it. So you work with a lot of entrepreneurs who have ADHD. So how can people kind of tailor their business and their marketing strategies to suit themselves being neurodiverse, I think is the question, rather than directed specifically at ADHD, because we're very much shiny object syndrome, dopamine hits, endorphins, satisfaction levels. There's so much going on. How do you help them bring that to a constructive end?
So I was diagnosed with ADHD 4 years ago. I think for me personally, the first step, like you've just demonstrated really well, is you've got to come to terms with it. And the problem is that, again, social media and humans are mocking, everyone's got ADHD and blah, 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 right? So it's super important to, first of all, get a support network of people around you that have the condition and you're able to come to terms with it. Because if you can't talk about it openly without cringing or feeling awkward, then you haven't accepted that that's what you've got, right? And there's these challenges with, with diagnosis, particularly in the UK, waiting lists, etc. I was lucky because I got in early, so I was able to get diagnosed within 6 months. But my message, my main message around all of this is diagnosis is a personal choice, and I think it's really important. I think it's very useful for people, and everyone's individual. Mine, ADHD, will not manifest the same way it does for you, and my life experiences as well, what I've been through, the gender difference as well, all that sort of stuff. So it's really important to come to terms with it and understand the uniqueness of you and what makes you tick and what your challenges are. And that doesn't need a diagnosis, right? I've got comorbid with OCD and obsessive thinking sometimes. So I think if you're listening to this and you think you've got ADHD or you're waiting for a diagnosis, it doesn't really matter because you are the way you are, and that's about self-acceptance of the way you are. So that's the first thing. And then I think the biggest challenge for us all is undoing the systems that we live in and the expectations of us. This world has been built for neurotypical people, understandably, because of the fact that there's more of them and we don't have the awareness that we do now. But there's these pressures that we pick up on. 95% of our thoughts are subconscious. We are absorbing so much data and information you have no idea, and it's all going into your brain. And so we're picking up these messages about work Monday to 9 to 5, do this, do that, should be the. And so it's undoing that and thinking about how is it best for me to work. I sometimes don't work on a Monday morning and I work in the afternoon and the evening. And sometimes I don't work on Mondays at all. I have to go with my energy levels. So I think it's really about understanding where you're at and what you need. And then the final point really, which I won't go into too much detail. I write a lot. I've got newsletter and blog posts about this, about supporting people. And then it's about understanding what you're capable of. I think for me personally, when I was first diagnosed, it was like, I've got ADHD, so I can't do X, Y, and Z. No, my approach is, and by the way, this is my view, so if you don't agree with it, fair enough, but this is how I see it, right? Which is, because, it's hard to sit there and go, well, I see it this way, because people come back at you, but try it on. Do it your way. But I've been doing it this way. My clients have been doing it this way. And this is the expectations I have on myself and them, which is, it's not about I can't. It's about it's just harder. Now, don't get me wrong. I just want to like really make a point that there are some things which really are just really hard and sometimes impossible. So it's not about that, but it's just about opening up and being curious about how can I do things? How can I push myself a little bit more? Okay, so I'm struggling to focus right now. I'm not going to sit there and force myself. I'm going to change up my diary and my day and move things around. But I can focus. It's just about finding that right combination of ways of working and doing things differently that fits you. And unfortunately, that takes time. And two, it will take effort. If you broke your leg and you were at the bottom of a flight of stairs, you can get up the stairs. It's just going to take a lot more effort. And that is really the reality for me of people with ADHD. It will take more effort. It's going to be a bit harder, but you know, look at what your goal is and you can absolutely, that's the key message, is you can do it. It shouldn't be something that stops you, just about looking at things differently.
Yeah, I love that. I think I'll resonate with a lot of what you've said there. It's certainly around having energy and focus at different times of the day. Like I've now shifted when I do certain activities to more focused times where I know that I'm better. And that can change from week to week. And, you know, there are some afternoons where I'm kind of sat there and it's 3:00 in the afternoon. It's not that I can't be bothered. It's that I just really don't want to do what I'm about to do. And I haven't got anything else to do. So, right, well, I'm going to take 2 hours, go play with my family, and I'm going to come back to the laptop at 8:30 at night and do 2 hours then when I'm a bit calmer. So I think,
brilliant.
Yeah,
Love it.
It's absolutely about that. Why do what you've always done if it doesn't work for you? And questioning everything around you, that breaking the system thing that you mentioned at the beginning. Again, I started running my own business and I found myself working Monday to Friday. And 2-3 months in, I went, why am I working Fridays? I don't need to work Fridays. I'm spending half of my week not doing anything because I'm bored, because I've done everything. Like, why don't I shoehorn everything into 4 days and take a Friday for myself? And the moment I slipped the framing on a Friday from it's a working day that I'm going to have off to it's a family day that I can work some of if I need to, it changed Fridays for me. I don't even consider working Fridays most weeks now. I might do the odd webinar in the afternoon. So if you're a business owner that's out there, like, definitely listen to Jeremy, think about what you just accept, because I can guarantee there are so many things that you accept as a should. To go back to what you said earlier, a should be, don't should all over yourself. Do what's right for you. Fantastic. I love it. To bring back a bit more towards marketing then. So you obviously spent quite a lot of time in paid media, which is quite a tough, quick moving expertise area. Like what worked 20 years ago doesn't even come into play anymore. Whilst the strategies might stay the same, the tactics are vastly different, and even month to month probably shift quite a lot. So if I could ask you, what's one of the main misconceptions that business owners have about digital advertising? And what can they do about that?
So I think with paid media, so I'm talking specifically mostly about search engine marketing. So Google Ads, Bing, even though it's 95% Google Ads. And within that, there's a whole world of stuff that you can look at. There's display, there's video, there's YouTube, there's all sorts of stuff, shopping, etc. I think the biggest misconception is that it doesn't work for small businesses. I'm really still surprised about showing up to networking meetings, and I very rarely come across another paid marketing person. I'm like, am I the only one here? It's great but I think there's this really strange thing that I find, which is a bit of it's just very strange. So Google, Facebook, Meta, they make it super easy for people to sign up to go and advertise, right? You'd think logical strategy, because we want to get people on our platform and starting to sign up. But they shoot themselves in the foot because they force, maybe a strong word, they encourage people to go through their automated campaign setups. Smart campaigns is the classic example. Google's machine learning is way less intelligent than Google gives it credit. And what happens, and I've seen this time and time again with small businesses, is they come to me and they go, I've tried it, it doesn't work. And I go in and I go, yeah, because you've got a smart campaign set up. Your conversion tracking is not set up. It's tracking things that aren't true conversions, the data you want to capture, or the actions you want your client to take. It's just doing a terrible, terrible job and spending you money, and it's not working. So they end up shutting it down. And so it's a kind of, it's this misconception that it's not right for small businesses. And also it's expensive. And people think, oh, well, I'll go and do all this free stuff. Social media, search engine optimization, which are both really powerful tools. But every single business I've ever started, I've always started off building it off the back of paid search. My first business, Ray's Bakery, that was all built off the back of paid search. My coaching business, 90% of my leads come through paid search. I don't have to do anything. I'm sitting here talking to you and people are looking at my website and sending me messages. So I think that's the biggest misconception, that it's not going to work for them. That said, and I'm trying not to plug myself too much, but you do need to go and get help. And I know that's coming from an expert, but you really do, because in the same reason why you don't or shouldn't be doing your finances for yourself, you go get an accountant. An accountant costs money, but they save you money long term. This is so true for paid search, particularly for Google, that it will save you money in the long term. And I think people should really consider it as part of their marketing mix. And I don't think many people do.
For a business that's, let's say they're doing 500,000 a year as it stands already, right? Maybe they're already going to a certain extent. What would you recommend to them would be a starting point if they've gotten that far without paid media and they're doing that on, word of mouth, organic and what have you? What's a ratio for budget spend on paid media in your view to get started?
If they're doing 500K a year, I mean, this is the thing. So I've got businesses that I work with that are doing multi-million pound businesses, and they're spending a few £1,000s a month on paid search. And then I've got small businesses that are probably spending, 50% of what they're already. So I think it's about your appetite for growth. It very much depends on the business. I primarily work with B2B clients. I do some B2C. I avoid e-com because it's a very specific discipline within that world. And so it's my thing I would say to people in that situation is go and have a look at Google's data about how many people are searching for your business on Google every day. And then think about the fact that your competitors are potentially getting a lot of that traffic. Yes, you might be strong on search engine optimization, but you're definitely not going to be able to cover all the bases for sure. And that's where paid search is really useful. But also, if it's a particularly competitive term, then you are actually taking up more of the real estate on the search engine results pages, which means just you're more present. So I think it's hard to be able to say, right, you've got 500K business. You can spend £500 a month. You can spend £1,000 and still get more leads coming in. I think the most important thing that people need to realize is the more data you have, the quicker you can make decisions about whether or not it's working, and you can start to inform strategy. I say to all my clients, minimum of 3 months to be able to get a sense of where we're at. If you're spending a lot of money, we're going to get a ton of data. It might be a bit quicker. There's lots of areas you need to optimize in the account itself, but also on your landing pages, your messaging, etc. So it is very complex in comparison to other marketing channels like, say, SEO, etc. I sometimes get clients go, how much could I spend? And I go, how much have you got? Like literally. Like there's so much traffic and data out there that's coming through that you can jump on the back of, that sometimes in some industries, it's like, write a check and I'll spend it for you.
Yeah, but you'll see the results on the back of it, which is the insane thing.
I was going to say, I'll add to that. That was a terrible place to end a sentence. Like, I'm not just going to piss it up the wall. But what I mean is like, because I could do a whole podcast on the generic keywords, broad match keywords versus exact, and brand building and direct response in paid search. You can spend a lot of money. Of course, with smaller businesses, you want direct response. You want people going, I need this thing, right? Someone types in business coach Brighton. They're looking for a business coach in Brighton. I'm there. Hello. So I want to have as much real estate there. as possible. So yeah.
Love it. Perfect. Thank you very much for that. And then I guess then moving to the two questions I ask all of our guests, which I think are quite important. So what's one marketing practice perhaps that if you could wave the magic wand, you would just stop business owners trying to do in their industry? Is there something out there? And I can guarantee, I can see by the smile on your face that there is. There's always something that gets people's fire burning. What is it?
Oh, it's just this really cold, slimy, outbound nonsense. Like, maybe it's just me, right? But I'm far too, maybe it's because I'm in marketing, right? But just stop trying to like insert yourself in your business into someone's life without any like, it's just cold, anything cold, outbound, cold emails, phone, outbound calling, LinkedIn. I mean, honestly, the amount of times I get, LinkedIn requests and then just boom, straight away a message. I mean, I've stopped accepting people in that respect. It don't get me wrong, it does work, right? It will work, but it's not as effective, but it's short term, right? And there are a lot of people, there's a lot of young men in bedrooms selling lead generation services on Meta.
Yeah.
And they come up on my feeds all the time, and it drives me nuts. So no disrespect to what they're doing, but if I could get rid of that and get that out of the world, that would be amazing. The obvious solution to that is paid search, but it's about building an audience. That's so important for businesses now. It's building an audience, understand who your ideal customer persona, your ideal buyer is, really understand what problems they have. And that's the key, what problems they have. The solution will come, but it's trying to force the solution before you've actually accepted and built trust with that person. I'm probably talking about like services, B2C, B2B rather, services more than anything else. But it's about building trust and building an audience and warming them up and proving that you are their kind of person, that you've got the knowledge and the experience. The sad thing is that takes so much time and so much energy and effort that it's tempting to go down these slimier, colder routes. But, not a lot I can do about that, unfortunately.
There's two things that I would say with that, right, is one, I love that people are doing that all the time. Don't know about you, Jeremy, but I love it because do you know what makes my life so easy? Because people magnetically polarize themselves away from that stuff and come to me instead, and I just make easy living out of that. But secondly, we live in this world where we've conned ourselves into thinking that you have to work backwards from business landed to how many opportunities do I generally win, to work back to how many leads I need to reach out to how many prospects I need to have at the beginning. And then, right, I want to go for double my revenue, so I need to double my leads. And then I'm going to reach out to 500,000 people this month. I can't possibly do that by hand, so I have to automate it. I have to hyper-personalize it with, hey, Jeremy, I can see that you live in Brighton and the McDonald's there is fantastic. Have you tried the double cheeseburger? But this is a con. You're leaving yourself open by doing this. There are better ways, and I'm guilty, right? I have tried to do this in the past, right? And there is relative success. There's tactics you can use that can help you stand out, and I'm not going to get into all of that. But the point what I'm trying to say here is, if you stop assuming that you need a cushion at the beginning of your pipeline, and if you research well and find your good fit and know your audience well enough, you can do good outreach where you don't need to sell, because the moment you connect with someone, they realize that you solve their problems. And that kind of leads nicely into paid media as well, because if you've got the two side by side, it's about bringing eyeballs to your content and to your website and to your LinkedIn profile. And if you can do that, you pull the clients to you rather than pushing your content on them, which is not a nice place to be.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, I like that.
I love it. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today, Jeremy. I really enjoyed the conversation. We should definitely get you back on as a guest later on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. And if you're watching or listening along at home, don't forget, hit subscribe, give us a rating. Please give us a rating. I love those ratings when they come in. And if you don't want to give us a rating because you want to tell me how rubbish I am, drop me an email. I love those emails too. We've not had any yet for the show, but I do love a bit of constructive feedback because that's how we learn. You got any advice for the show? Anything that you would do differently? Any guests that you'd recommend? Give us a line. This is your show as much as it is ours. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. Contact details are in the show notes, and I'd love to hear from you. Your host today was me, Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Here at Javelin, we specialise in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. We describe it as getting ideas out of your head into video and out to your socials. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximise your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. Our podcast is only possible with your continued support.